Honestly speaking, this is your leadership. I get that you hate the orange man. I get that you wake up every day and say 15 curses, hope for the worst for him. But you know what? January 2029, he's gone forever. And you have to live with the consequences of the actions today. How will we pay back a $50 trillion national debt if we hand away one of the fastest growing and most valuable industries in the history of the world to our economic competitors? How will we? How will the dollars in your pocket be worth anything if we throw that away? When you criminalize an entire generation of entrepreneurs and engineers and scientists, you push them all to Europe, to China, to the Middle East, who's going to be there to build the next generation of America? What's your plan? Honestly speaking, just print your way out of it, regulate your way out of it, eat the rich, tax the billionaires, take all their money? Great, you got $5 trillion. 10% of what you need. What's next? Who's the next group you're going to go after and kill? What's the next company you're going to take?
So Charles Hoskinson is going absolutely nuts. He's trying to help everyone understand what the Clarity Act is and what's actually going on. And if you're not paying attention, we covered this in depth the last 2 days, but the Democrats in Congress are actually trying to stop and rewrite the Clarity Act altogether. This was the bill that was actually going to finally get crypto mainstream with real regulation, real rules set to move forward. But unfortunately, Pocahontas and the rest of the Democrats have stepped in. Let's take a listen to the beginning of this video.
I don't understand you people on the left. I really don't. You're so thoroughly propagandized. What do you stand for? Honestly speaking, what do you stand for? You say you stand for democracy, and you don't get to pick your leaders. You stand for truth and transparency and an objective reality, and you're the party of science and the party of intellectualism. And yet you can't even admit when your leaders have dementia and cancer and they're deeply compromised. You say you stand for the rule of law and no one's above the law, but then you're all totally comfortable when Hunter Biden gets a blanket pardon and we just have to move on. All the garbage with the Clinton initiative and this other stuff. You say you stand for equality and equity and combating systemic racism. And when we invent a money system that can end that for everyone everywhere, you want to go and destroy it, burn it to the ground, offshore it. Doesn't hurt white people like me who are rich. We can go offshore. Hurts the minorities in Chicago who can't. What do you stand for? Honestly speaking, this is your leadership.
Over on X today, also I posted, it feels like the extreme liquidation yesterday is to get you to beg for crushing legislation. It's really strange how the timing of this goes into place as we see Democrats propose restricted list for DeFi protocols, sparking the outcry. And this is for the rewrite of that late legislation. So they got everyone riled up, freaking out. Oh my gosh, everyone got liquidated. Stop these bad exchanges from stealing from me, right? Rah, 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 we're fighting against them. At the same time, the Democrats are trying to rewrite this agreement that was already originally agreed upon. But there were also signs that there was going to be a downside risk. Number one, Jim Cramer did say buy crypto just recently. And as you know, there is an indicator called the inverse Cramer. You do the opposite of whatever he says. And sure enough, a couple of days later, the market absolutely tanked. Also, if you remember, there was this post by Mr. Poole. Everyone was hyped up. We thought we already got this massive pullback. Look at the chart here. We had this nice pump, which we've been experiencing crypto, this scare tactic, panic to the downside. And then are we going to see the next move to the upside absolutely rip and go bonkers? Time will tell. But as we know, a lot of the Mr. Poole posts from the original, actual, real Mr. Poole have come to light. And this is our next move that we are waiting for. There's a lot of rumors going around that this was Binance's fault that actually made all of this happen. The last 24 hours have been turbulent. This is the CEO of Binance. Now, a lot of people think that CZ is still the CEO and runs the company. Well, remember, he got put in prison for fraud because that's kind of what Binance does, is fraud. It's been known for that. And now we have this crazy scenario that Binance and Wintermute were conspiring to potentially have this happen to the downside. But the CEO is trying to come out and say, it wasn't our fault. The last 24 hours have been turbulent for the crypto market. And I know many face challenges on our platform. I'm truly sorry to everyone who is impacted. Let's say price was starting to fall, which a lot of you experienced. I was on the phone actually with Crypto Dad, Mr. JR, and we were talking about the crypto charts. And then all of a sudden he goes, holy, and I was actually getting tires put on my truck. So I wasn't in front of the charts, but I was just talking to him about the charts and an indicator. And he goes, oh my gosh, Bitcoin just dropped to 113,000. And I was like, oh, dang, that's pretty serious because it was at 120. It's a $7,000 move, like over instant. And we were just like, wow, that's really crazy. And then I had to go pay my bill for my tires. And then I got back to the house and I looked at the charts. I immediately called him back. I said, holy crap, dude. Did you notice? He's like, no, I was on a walk with my family. What happened? $102,000 Bitcoin. It was a $20,000 drop in 10 minutes. XRP on some exchanges went from $2.50 down to 70 cents on some exchanges. So on that way down, it was moving so fast. What happened? Well, Binance shut off their whole entire system. You're not allowed to buy or sell right now. Coinbase shut off their entire system. So he went on to say, we don't make excuses. We listen closely, learn from what happened, and are committed to doing better. If you're still experiencing any unresolved issues, please reach out to our Binance support team. Every case will be handled with care and attention it deserves, and compensation will be provided where applicable. So, like I said, tons of people I know were involved in a leverage trade, could not exit that. Some people are calling for reparations. They need payment back because these guys absolutely scammed them, not just Binance, but all of the exchanges. He goes on to say, volatility is part of the market, and we encourage all users to stay informed and take care during these times. Thanks for sticking with us. By the way, this is not true. Volatility, you could not exit. You also, when it got to the bottom levels and you might have been on top of the charts ready to click the buy button, you couldn't buy because they closed down the system. So the only thing that I can say is if you were leveraged, I'm sorry. I feel your pain. Trust me, I'm on your team because I did experience. But for those of you that didn't leverage, not a big deal. Because like I said, if you were not leveraged out, this wick did not apply to you. Yeah, you might have gotten scared. The fact that it dropped severely. I mean, it actually got down to $1.17. And it was probably very scary if you opened up your app. Hopefully you were not anywhere near apps. You were touching grass, riding some waves or something at that time. But when we look at this, we're at $2.33. Not so severe if you're just in spot. And we can recover from these levels. And if Mr. Poole is from the future, like some people say, we have a bright future ahead of us because this nasty drop to the bottom, it has definitely rebounded. And to be a little more positive here, I know I'm a little heated up because it does piss me off that a lot of you guys were affected out there. You guys are geniuses for being in crypto. Just make sure and this is why we always talk about in not financial advice. That's why you have your long-term hodl bag, right? Everyone talks about that. And maybe you have a little 10% piece of the pie that you do leverage trading with, and hopefully you weren't erased. I mean, there's some people actually committing suicide because they lost their whole entire life's fortune, $30 million out the door, $900,000 out the door. Depending on who you are, that's a lot of money to everyone. Shoot, some of you guys might have lost $3,000, $5,000, $1,000 for some of you might have been the biggest hurt feeling for you ever. And I completely understand that. But massive. Bitcoin has created 36 millionaires or billionaires, 450 centimillionaires, that'd be over $100 million, and 240,000 millionaires, which is absolutely incredible, right? Too bad we don't have the time machine to go back, invest a shit ton of money into Bitcoin. So also, AIXBT put out a post. Binance API was throttling, captured 5% of actual liquidations during the crash. CoinGlass is estimating $300 to $400 billion. Remember, everyone's talking about it was a $20 billion liquidation according to CoinGlass, but realistically, that's because the API only passed through a certain amount of losses. Looks like there could potentially be 300, 400 billion. As I said, when I was on the phone with JR talking to him, the crypto dad from the channel, I personally thought it could have been $1 trillion worth of liquidations because of how severe that was. It literally liquidated every single person that had an open interest leverage trade. There might have been a few people that survived. Hopefully so. You must have had an extreme amount of open margin there, but very, very scary scenario for everyone else. Every liquidation heat map, leverage ratio, and risk metrics from Binance is off by 10 to 20x. Your position sizing models are using fantasy data from an exchange that controls 90% of perp open interest. And as we said, $1.3 million Morgan Stanley does remove restrictions on Bitcoin and crypto investments for all clients. Crazy that the day that happened, we had the severe crash to the bottom. Autism Capital also had a great post here. Seems like we're in the part of the game where everyone who lost their shirts with the crypto liquidation apocalypse is trying to rebuild their long positions with leverage again to make it all back. Like at the casino, that's what people do, right? You go and you run to the ATM and try to get more money. Well, they're continuing to get liquidated by whales, not allowing them to rebuild.